All right, let's jump into a fascinating study today, one that delves into telomerase therapy for a condition called Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome, HGPS for short.
Yes.
And as you may know, this is a rare condition that unfortunately causes accelerated aging in children.
Right.
We're going to unpack the science behind this research, break it down in a way that's hopefully clear and engaging.
Absolutely.
So to set the stage, could you
Yeah.
give us a quick overview of HGPS and why it's so relevant to aging research in general?
Yeah, so HTPS, it's a genetic disorder and it causes, as you said, rapid aging in children.
Right.
Most children with HTPS unfortunately don't live past their teens.
Oh,
And often they die from things like heart attacks or strokes.
that's so sad.
It is, yeah, it's very tragic.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about HGPS from a research perspective is that it gives us a sort of fast-forward glimpse into the aging process.
Right.
So by understanding what goes wrong in HGPS, we might be able to understand the mechanisms of aging in all of us, everyone.
Wow. So it's like a tragic but powerful magnifying glass on aging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a key thing in HDPS is that there's a mutation in a gene called the lamin A gene. And this mutation, it leads to the production of a harmful protein called progerin.
Okay.
And progerin basically interferes with normal cell function, and that contributes to the accelerated aging that we see in these children.
So progerin is like the cellular saboteur.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Now, this study specifically focuses on endothelial cells.
Right.
The cells that line our blood vessels. Why are those cells so crucial, especially when we talk about aging?
So endothelial cells, they're kind of like the gatekeepers of our circulatory system.
Okay.
They regulate blood flow, they prevent blood clots from forming, and they make sure that all the tissues in our body get the nutrients and oxygen that they need.
Okay.
As we age, endothelial cells, they naturally start to decline in their function. And this decline contributes to various age-related health issues.
Okay.
But in HGPS, this deterioration of the endothelial cells, it's drastically accelerated because of progerin.
I see. So progerin is basically throwing a wrench into the works of these endothelial cells,
Yeah.
causing them to age prematurely and then leading to the vascular problems that we see in HGPS.
Exactly.
So now, this study uses something called induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. Can you explain what those are
Sure.
and how they were used in this research?
Yeah, so iPSCs are really interesting. They're like cellular time machines.
Okay.
So scientists take adult cells, for example, skin cells, and they can reprogram these cells back into a state that's similar to embryonic stem cells.
Oh, wow.
And this allows them to basically create different cell types from patients who have specific diseases.
I see.
In this case, they created endothelial cells from both HGPS patients and also from their unaffected parents.
Okay.
So this lets you have like a comparison group.
Ah, that's very clever.
Yeah.
So they created a sort of living model of the disease in a dish using cells with the actual HGPS mutation.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really powerful technique.
And that's how we get to the heart of the study, which is telomerase therapy.
Right.
So first, can you remind us what telomeres and telomerase are and why they matter in the aging process?
Okay, so you can think of telomeres as those little plastic caps at the end of shoelaces. They protect the shoelace from fraying and from getting damaged.
Right.
And telomeres, they basically protect our chromosomes in the same way.
I see.
But every time a cell divides, those telomeres get a little bit shorter.
Okay, so what happens when they get too short?
Well, when telomeres get too short, the cell, it can't divide properly anymore.
Right.
And it can even die. And this process, it's a big part of why we age.
Okay.
Now, there's an enzyme called telomerase, and telomerase, it can replenish those telomeres, so it's like a cellular repair crew.
So telomerase is like the fountain of youth for our cells.
In a way, yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay.
But the problem is that as we age, telomerase activity, it tends to decline. And so our telomeres, they keep getting shorter, and this contributes to cellular aging. And in HGPS, again, this whole process is sped up, it's on fast forward.
Ah, so that's where the telomerase therapy comes in.
That's right.
They're basically trying to boost those cellular repair crews in HGPS patients.
Yeah.
So what were some of the key findings from this study? What did they actually discover?
Well, the results were pretty amazing.
Okay.
When they treated HGPS endothelial cells with telomerase, they found that not only did it lengthen their telomeres,
Okay.
but it also improved the cell's overall function.
So they weren't just patching up the telomeres, they were actually making the cells healthier.
Yeah, they were improving the cell's ability to function properly.
What kind of improvements did they see?
They saw a whole range of improvements. So, for example, the treated cells, they were better at forming new blood vessels.
Okay.
And this is really important for a healthy circulatory system.
Right.
They were also better at taking up harmful cholesterol,
Yeah.
the kind that can contribute to atherosclerosis.
Okay.
And they even saw an increase in nitric oxide production.
Nitric oxide. I thought that's what they give you when you're giving birth.
Well, it does have medical uses, but in this context,
Okay.
nitric oxide, it's a molecule that actually helps blood vessels relax and widen.
Hmm.
And this improves blood flow, so boosting nitric oxide production in these HGPS cells is a really good sign for vascular health.
Wow, it's like this telomerase therapy is hitting multiple targets at once.
Right.
It's addressing both the telomere issue and improving overall cellular function.
That's right. It's having a broad positive effect on the cells.
Now, this study also looked at the inflammatory aspect of HGPS, which I thought was really fascinating. Can you explain what the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP, is?
Okay, so SASP, you can think of it kind of like a cellular distress signal.
Okay.
So as cells age, they start to release these inflammatory molecules that can actually damage surrounding cells.
So it's kind of like they're sending out a cry for help,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, that cry can also harm nearby cells.
Yeah, it's like a chain reaction of cellular distress.
Exactly.
And in HGPS, they found evidence of SSP in the endothelial cells. And this is important because those inflammatory signals could be contributing to the deterioration of nearby vascular smooth muscle cells.
Okay.
And these smooth muscle cells, they're really important for maintaining healthy blood vessels.
So those aging endothelial cells are not only dysfunctional themselves, they're also sending out these distress signals that are hurting their neighbors.
Yeah, it's a double whammy.
Now, the study also highlights a protein called SIRT-T1, and I've heard it's kind of like a longevity superstar.
Yeah, SIRT-T1 is involved in a whole bunch of cellular processes, from DNA repair to stress response to even regulating telomerase activity.
Right.
So it's like the ultimate multitasker.
Right, busy protein.
Yeah, very busy.
But how does all of this connect to DNA damage, which we know is a big part of aging?
Right, so the study found that SIRT-T1 levels were reduced in those HGPS endothelial cells.
Okay.
And remember, they also saw those increased markers of DNA damage in these cells. And here's the key. When they applied the telomerase treatment, it boosted our SIRT-T1 levels.
Okay.
And it reduced those markers of DNA damage.
So telomerase is like a superhero sidekick, helping SIRT-T1 fight DNA damage and keep those cells healthy.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, so they saw these promising results in cells in a dish,
Yes.
but then they took their research a step further, and they actually tested telomerase therapy in a mouse model of HGPS.
Right.
But I'm curious, why use mice? Because we know that mice, their telomeres, are naturally much longer than humans.
That's a great question. And you're right, mouse telomeres are much longer than human telomeres.
Okay.
But this particular HGPS mouse model that they used, it still exhibits some key features of the disease,
Okay.
like the accelerated aging and those vascular problems that we were discussing.
Okay.
So it allows researchers to test the effects of the therapy in a living organism, which is a lot more complex than just cells in a dish.
Right, it's like a stepping stone to see if this therapy would actually work in a more complex system
Exactly.
before potentially moving to human trials.
Yeah.
So tell me, what happened to these mice? What happened when they got the telomerase treatment?
Well, the results were pretty exciting.
Okay.
They saw a reduction in inflammation in the aorta, which is the main artery in the body.
Okay.
And that suggests that vascular health was improved.
All right, so it's kind of echoing those positive effects that we saw in the human cells.
Yeah, exactly.
But the big question is, did it actually impact their lifespan?
Here's where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
The telomerase treatment extended the lifespan of those HGPS mice by 20%.
20%? That's a huge jump.
It is. It's a really significant increase.
So not only is this therapy improving vascular health, it's protecting against cellular damage, but it's also actually increasing lifespan in a mouse model of accelerated aging.
That's right.
I need a minute to process all of this. This is incredible.
Yeah, it's really groundbreaking research.
Wow, 20% lifespan extension in those HGPS mice? That's amazing.
This is a remarkable finding for sure.
But this study, it wasn't just about giving telomerase and seeing what happens. They really dug deep into the mechanisms.
Yeah.
What stood out to you as the most groundbreaking part of this research?
I think what's really exciting is how this study went beyond just observing that telomerase therapy worked.
Right.
They actually uncovered some of the specific ways that it's impacting these cells at a molecular level.
Okay, so give me the details. How is telomerase actually orchestrating these improvements?
So remember how we talked about SAP, that inflammatory state in aging cells?
Yes.
Well, this study found that the telomerase treatment actually dialed down the expression of several key inflammatory genes in those HGPS endothelial cells.
So it's not just calming down those stressed out cells, it's actually changing their genetic activity to reduce inflammation.
Precisely.
Amazing.
They also found that the telomerase treatment influenced the expression of genes that are involved in cell adhesion and migration. And this suggests that it could be helping to improve the integrity of the blood vessel lining, preventing those cells from becoming leaky or dysfunctional.
Ah, so it's not just about preventing the cells from aging prematurely, it's about keeping them functioning properly within that blood vessel structure.
Right.
Yeah,
It's important for overall vascular health.
exactly. And remember that protein sortie 1 we talked about, the longevity superstar?
Yeah,
The researchers, they dug a little deeper into its role as well.
they did, yeah.
What did they find?
So they found that the telomerase treatment seemed to enhance SIRT1's activity,
Uh,
specifically boosting its ability to protect against DNA damage.
so it's like the telomerase is giving SORA-T1 a power-up,
Mm-hmm.
making it even more effective at its job of keeping those cells healthy and functioning properly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And this ties back to another fascinating finding.
Yeah.
The study showed that telomerase treatment actually improved the ability of those HGPS cells to repair DNA damage.
Right, so we're seeing multiple benefits here.
Yeah, it's like a multi-pronged attack against aging.
Yeah.
So telomerase is lengthening those telomeres, it's reducing inflammation, it's boosting SIRT1 activity, and it's enhancing DNA repair
I
mechanisms.
think so.
It's like a cellular rejuvenation package.
That's a great way to put it.
And remember, these positive effects, they weren't just observed in isolated cells in a dish, right?
Right.
They were also seen in a living organism, those HGPS mice.
Yes, and that's really what makes the study so compelling.
Because it's one thing to see improvements in cells in a lab,
Yeah.
but to actually see those improvements translate into lifespan extension in a mammal, that's pretty remarkable.
Right, it gives us a lot of hope for the potential of telomerase therapy to address aging and age-related diseases.
Now, I noticed that they used a very specific type of delivery system in this study, mRNA.
Yes.
So why did they choose mRNA to deliver the telomerase, and what are some of the advantages of that approach?
Well, mRNA, it's basically a set of instructions that tells cells how to build specific proteins. And in this case, they designed mRNA that carried the instructions for building telomerase.
I see.
And one of the big advantages of using mRNA is that it's very targeted.
Okay.
So you can design it to deliver those instructions to specific cell types without affecting other cells.
So it's like sending a personalized message directly to the cells that need that telomerase boost.
Exactly, it's very precise.
And what are some of the other benefits of mRNA as a delivery system?
Well, another advantage is that mRNA, it's transient.
Okay.
So it doesn't permanently alter the cell's DNA.
Right.
It delivers its message, the cell builds the protein,
Hmm.
and then the mRNA, it degrades naturally.
So it's like a temporary software update for the cells, providing them with the tools that they need to function better, but it doesn't make any lasting changes to their genetic code.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Makes sense. So it sounds like this mRNA technology could be a game changer for treating a wide range of diseases,
It really does hold a lot of promise.
not just ones related to aging. Now, one thing that I thought was really interesting in this study was their focus on something called endo-MT,
Yeah,
endothelial to mesenchymal transition. Can you explain what that process is
sure.
and why it might be relevant to aging and vascular health?
So endo-MT, it's essentially a process where those endothelial cells that line our blood vessels, they can actually transform into a different type of cell
Okay.
called mesenchymal cells.
Okay.
Now, mesenchymal cells, they're more like stem cells.
Okay.
They're more versatile, and they can give rise to a variety of different cell types.
So it's kind of like the endothelial cells are switching careers, becoming more like stem cells.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So endo-MT, that's a normal process that happens during embryonic development, right?
It is, yeah, it helps build different tissues and organs as we're developing.
Okay, so it's essential for building our bodies.
Mhm.
But what happens in adulthood?
Well, in adulthood, endo-MT can be triggered by things like injury, inflammation, and, you guessed it, aging.
So as we age, those endothelial cells might start switching careers more often. But why is that a problem?
Well, it's not always a problem.
Okay.
Sometimes it can actually be beneficial. For example, it can help with wound healing. But
Okay.
in the context of blood vessels, too much endo-MT can be a bad thing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of trouble can endo-MT cause in our blood vessels?
Well, when endothelial cells undergo endo-MT, they actually lose their specialized functions.
Okay.
Those important jobs that they do to keep our blood vessels healthy.
Right.
So they can start to contribute to inflammation, they can contribute to fibrosis, which is the stiffening of tissues.
Okay.
And this can actually set the stage for atherosclerosis, that buildup of plaque inside our arteries.
So those transformed cells, they're actually contributing to the very problem that they're supposed to be preventing.
Yeah, it's like they're working against themselves.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is, and what this study found was that the HGPS endothelial cells, they were more prone to undergoing this endo-MT process, which could be another reason why these children are so susceptible to those vascular problems.
It's like the accelerated aging is pushing those cells towards endo-MT and making those vascular issues even worse.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. They found that the telomerase treatment actually reduced endo-MT in those HGPS cells.
It did, yeah.
Hold on. So telomerase is not only fixing those cells at a molecular level,
All right.
but it's also preventing them from making this potentially harmful career change.
Yeah, so the data suggests.
Wow, it's amazing.
It's another piece of the puzzle, another way that telomerase therapy might be protecting those blood vessels
Yeah.
and improving overall vascular health.
This is all pretty mind-blowing stuff, it seems like. This telomerase therapy is hitting the problem from multiple angles,
Is.
addressing not just the symptoms of accelerated aging, but also the underlying cellular processes that are driving the disease.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this study. It's not just about treating the symptoms, it's about trying to target the root causes of the problem.
Now, this study used some pretty sophisticated techniques to analyze those cells and understand what was happening at a molecular level.
Yeah.
They mentioned things like RNA sequencing and bioinformatics analysis.
All right.
Can you break those down for us non-scientists? What do those terms actually mean?
Okay, so imagine you have a library full of books, and these books, they represent all the genes in a cell.
Okay.
RNA sequencing is kind of like going through that library and making a list of all the books that are currently being read.
Okay.
So it gives you a snapshot of which genes are active at a particular moment in time.
Ah, so it's like a peek into the cell's activity log, showing us which genes are turned on and actually doing their thing.
Exactly, it's a really powerful tool.
And then what about bioinformatics?
Well, bioinformatics is like having a super smart librarian who can analyze that list of books, identify patterns, and tell you what those patterns might mean.
Okay, so it's like having a detective who can decipher those clues that are hidden within that genetic activity log.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
So in this study, they used RNA sequencing to see how gene expression changed in those HGPS cells after they received the telomerase treatment.
Right.
And then they used bioinformatics to analyze that data and identify which pathways and processes were being affected by the therapy.
Exactly. It allows them to get a much deeper understanding of how telomerase was actually changing the behavior of those cells.
At a molecular level.
Yes.
This is all incredible, but I'm curious, they found these really amazing results in this mouse model of HGPS.
Yeah.
But what are the challenges in translating these findings to actual human therapies?
Right. So that's the million-dollar question.
What are the next steps?
While mouse models are incredibly valuable for studying diseases and testing therapies, there are always challenges in translating those findings to humans.
Yeah, I imagine our biology is a little more complex than a mouse's.
That's part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the therapy is safe and effective in humans,
Right.
and that it actually targets the right cells and tissues without causing unintended side effects.
So what would those next steps look like?
Well, I think one of the first steps would be to conduct more preclinical studies, perhaps in other animal models as well,
Okay.
to gather more data on the safety and the efficacy of the treatment.
Yeah.
They also need to figure out the best way to actually deliver the telomerase therapy to humans.
Right.
Would it be through mRNA like they did in this study, or would it be through some other method?
And I imagine dosage would be a crucial factor as well, right?
Absolutely.
Too much telomerase could potentially be a problem.
It could, yeah. So finding that sweet spot, that right dose that delivers the benefits without causing harm, that's really important.
Yeah.
And then if all goes well in those preclinical studies,
Mhm.
then they can move on to human clinical trials.
And that's when things get really exciting, seeing if those promising results in the lab actually translate to real benefits for patients.
Exactly, but clinical trials are a long and rigorous process
Ah.
with multiple phases to really ensure that the therapy is both safe and effective.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, but if telomerase therapy can really deliver on its promise,
Mhm.
it could be a game changer not just for HGPS patients, but potentially for all of us as we age.
It's a fascinating field, and I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Me too. It's a really exciting area of research.
This has been an amazing deep dive into the science of telomerase therapy and its potential for combating premature aging.
It has, yeah.
We've explored those cellular mechanisms, those innovative delivery methods, and the really remarkable results in a mouse model.
It's amazing work.
And this research truly offers, I think, a glimmer of hope for those who are battling HGPS.
It does.
And it provides really valuable insights into the aging process itself.
Yeah, it's very promising.
Now, it's time to shift gears a bit.
Okay.
This study focused on HGPS, but as we've been discussing, these findings have broader implications for understanding aging in general. It really is amazing to see how scientists are unraveling the mysteries of aging and developing therapies that could have a real impact on human health span. Now, this study focused specifically on HGPS, but as we've discussed, the findings have some broader implications for understanding aging in general. One of the things that stood out to me was their discussion of the connection between telomerase, sorority SIRTA1, and DNA damage. Can you unpack that a bit more? Why is this connection so significant for aging research?
Well, that connection is at the heart of why this study is so exciting. Telomeres, those protective caps on our chromosomes, they shorten as we age, and this shortening contributes to cellular dysfunction and eventually cell death.
Right, it's like a ticking clock inside our cells.
Yeah, exactly, like a ticking clock. And now telomerase, it can replenish those telomeres and essentially slow down that clock.
Right.
But what this study showed was that telomerase is doing more than just patching up those telomeres. It's also boosting the activity of SIRT1.
That longevity superstar protein we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And SIRT1, as we discussed, is involved in a whole range of cellular processes that contribute to longevity, including DNA repair.
Right.
So by boosting SIRT1 activity, telomerase is indirectly enhancing the cell's ability to repair DNA damage, which, as we know, is a key driver of aging.
So it's like a double whammy against aging. So telomerase is lengthening those telomeres, and it's also giving the cells a boost in their DNA repair capabilities.
Yeah, it's a powerful combination.
It is a powerful combination, and this connection between telomerase and SIRT1, it's particularly intriguing, I think, because it suggests that telomerase therapy might have benefits beyond just addressing telomere shortening, right? It does.
does.
It might be able to actually rejuvenate cells at a more fundamental level,
Right.
improving their overall health and function.
That's a very exciting possibility.
It is. It's not just about slowing down the clock. It's about potentially reversing some of the damage that's already been done.
Yeah.
Now, this study focused on the vascular system, which
Yeah.
is obviously a major issue in HGPS. But progerin, that harmful protein, we know that it affects many different cell types in the body.
It does.
So can you talk a little bit more about the broader implications of this research for understanding and potentially treating aging in general?
Yeah, that's a key point. So while this study focused on endothelial cells and their role in vascular aging,
Right.
the findings really do have much broader implications.
Yeah.
I mean, telomerase activity and telomere length are important for all of our cells, not just the ones in our blood vessels.
Right. So the lessons learned from this study, they could potentially be applied to other tissues and organs as well.
Exactly. For example, we know that telomere shortening, it's a hallmark of aging in many tissues, and it's been linked to an increased risk of various age-related diseases, things like heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease.
So if telomerase therapy can have these positive effects in HGPS, a disease that's characterized by this accelerated aging, it's reasonable to think that it might also have benefits in these other conditions.
That's the hope. Of course, much more research is needed to explore these possibilities.
Of course.
But this study really does provide a strong foundation for future investigations into the potential of telomerase therapy for addressing a wide range of age-related diseases.
It's incredible to think that we might one day have therapies that can target the very processes that drive aging.
Yeah.
One thing that stood out to me in this study was their use of a mouse model to test the telomerase therapy. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of animal models in scientific research, particularly in the field of aging?
Well, animal models, they're absolutely crucial for scientific research,
Yeah.
especially when we're studying those complex biological processes like aging.
Right.
They allow us to study diseases and test potential therapies in a living organism, which is much more complex and nuanced than just studying cells in a dish.
Right, it's like having a living laboratory where we can
Mm.
actually see how these therapies are going to work in a whole organism.
Right. Exactly. And mice in particular, they're very valuable for aging research because they share a surprising amount of genetic similarity with humans.
Okay.
And they also have relatively short lifespans, which allows researchers to study the effects of aging and potential anti-aging therapies over a shorter period of time.
It's like we're fast forwarding the aging process.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it's important to remember that mice are not humans, and there are always challenges in translating findings from animal studies to human therapies.
Right, but those animal models, they provide a crucial stepping stone,
They do.
allowing researchers to gather really valuable data on safety and efficacy before moving to human trials.
Absolutely. They help us to refine those therapies, identify potential side effects, and increase the chances of success when we eventually do test those therapies in humans.
Now, they use a very specific type of mouse model in this study, a model of HGPS. What advantages does using a model of a rare disease like this offer for aging research?
Well, using a model of a rare disease like HGPS can provide some really unique insights into the aging process. And as we discussed earlier, children with HGPS experience many of the same age-related changes that we see in the general population, just at a much accelerated pace.
Right, that fast forward button on aging.
Exactly. And this allows researchers to study the effects of potential anti-aging therapies in a shorter time frame and see those results more quickly.
So they can get a better understanding of how those therapies might work in the context of aging, even if they're ultimately targeting a different disease or condition.
Exactly. And in the case of this study, the fact that they were able to extend the lifespan of those HGPS mice by such a significant margin,
Right.
it provides strong evidence that telomerase therapy has the potential to impact aging at a fundamental level.
Yeah.
And it gives us hope that this approach might be applicable to a wider range of age-related diseases.
Well, this deep dive has been absolutely fascinating. We've explored the intricacies of telomerase therapy,
Yeah.
delved into those cellular mechanisms at play,
It's really amazing research.
and discussed the potential implications for treating not just HGPS, but potentially a wide range of age-related diseases.
Right.
It's clear that this research is a major step forward in our understanding of aging and the development of therapies that could one day help us live longer, healthier lives.
It's a very exciting time to be in the field of aging research, that's for sure.
It is, to our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the science of aging and the potential of telomerase therapy. Remember, the journey of discovery never ends. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be a part of the next big breakthrough in this fascinating field.
There's a whole universe of knowledge out there waiting to be explored.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.